Good morning. This is the moderator. A quick reminder that Bagley Keene rules require that remote board members leave their videos on. We are recording and you are free to begin.
Good morning and welcome, everyone. I want to ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent. As you may see, I'm not President Garcia. President Garcia is with us for this meeting, but attending remotely. To help ensure a smooth meeting, I will be conducting today's meeting with our executive officer and legal counsel's assistance. So wish me luck. You may notice board members accessing their laptops, phones, or other devices during the meeting. They are using the devices solely to access the board meeting materials that are in electronic format. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comment and ask for public comment on each agenda item. I ask that you be respectful of the need to conduct the board's business. This meeting is available via teleconference. Individuals listening to the meeting will have an opportunity to provide public comment and will be assisted by a moderator who will be facilitating the teleconferencing process. For those members of the public participating via teleconference, please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you make your comments. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. Today's meeting will be run according to the Open Meeting Act as required by law. We plan to end today by 4:30 p.m. I would like to introduce Executive Officer Gregory Pruden.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here.
As we did at our last meeting in October, before we do roll and call the meeting to order, I would like to begin by reciting our mission, vision, and values. The mission of the California State Board of Optometry is to protect the health and safety of California consumers through licensing, registration, education, and regulation of optometry and opticianry. Our vision is to have the highest quality optometric and optical care for the people of California. Our values are consumer protection, integrity, transparency, professionalism, excellence, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Now I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Secretary Bragg please call the roll.
Member Clemens,
Present.
Member Dawson,
Present.
Member Sue, Member Kleppa, Dr. Pruitt,
Here.
Dr. Wong,
Present.
Dr. Bragg, present. Vice President Linden,
Here.
President Garcia.
Present.
Have quorum.
Okay, thank you. A quorum is present. Let's move to agenda item number 2, public comments on items not on the agenda. The board welcomes public comment on any item not on the agenda. The board will extend 3 minutes to any speaker to speak on any topic that is not already before the board for discussion today. Is there any public comment from those in the audience? There appears to be none. Are there any comments from those on the phone?
This is the moderator. We've opened up the WebEx features for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you may click on the hand icon at the bottom of the computer screen, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. As stated, each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment features?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move to agenda item number 3.
Before we move on, this is Member Kleppa. I have a procedural question. This is probably as good a place as any to ask it. Can I proceed?
Yes.
Okay. Procedural question. I'm on remote, and it's a question that came up in previous meetings. If for some reason I have a difficulty and I cannot verbalize that difficulty, how can I communicate to the hearing room that difficulty? Is there a chat function?
Member Kleppa, why don't you just shoot me an email and I can announce it?
an email on my question or an email? I don't understand.
If you're having a difficulty, just and you can't announce it, for whatever reason, if your audio fails, shoot me an email and I can announce it.
All right. I don't have your email at hand. Do you want to send me an email?
Yeah, I'll
with
send you a quick
an
email so
announcement?
you can have it easily at hand.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 3, discussion and possible approval of minutes from the October 11th, 2024 board meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the October 2024 minutes from the members? I don't see any comments. I don't see any comments from those
Mine, yeah.
remote. May I have a motion to approve these as submitted and a second?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any public comment from those in the audience? There appears to be none. Is there any comment from those on the phone?
This is the moderator. We've opened up the public comment features. If anyone has a comment on the minutes or the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that. You may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment and click send. Any comments on the minutes? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment features?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay. Secretary Bragg, please perform the roll call. Oh,
Member Clemens,
I was absent, so I abstain.
Member Dawson. Member Sue, absent. Member Kleppa,
Aye.
Dr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Dr. Wong,
Aye.
Dr. Bragg, aye. Vice President Linden,
aye.
President Garcia.
I vote aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, the motion passes. We will now move to agenda item number 4. Discussion and possible action on Department of Consumer Affairs update. So members, today we have Karina Moreno from the Department of Consumer Affairs Executive Office with us to provide us with the DCA update. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Karina Moreno of the California Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today. On behalf of the department, I'd like to thank all members who serve to protect the public. First up is Form 700 filing changes effective January 1st, 2025. Effective January 1st, 2025, board members must file their Form 700 through the Fair Political Practice Commission's FPPC electronic filing system. Filings will no longer be filed via the NetFile portal and must be filed electronically with the FPPC. Paper filings will not be accepted. The governor signed AB 1170, Chapter 211, Statutes of 2024, Valencia. Effective January 1st, 2025, AB 1170 requires that a Form 700 filed by a public official board member for whom the commission is the filing officer must be filed electronically with the FPPC using the FPPC's electronic filing system. The FPPC will email board members a welcome email with login credentials by December 31st. Filers can continue to use the NetFile portal before January 1st, 2025. Feel free to contact Board and Bureau Relations with questions at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. Next is the DEI update. DCA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee met on October 25th, 2024. The committee elected Reggie Varghese as chair and Marlon McManus as vice chair. With Reggie and Marlon's years of experience and sincere commitment, we greatly look forward to accomplishing many DEI initiatives under their leadership. Next is new unconscious bias training for board members. DCA is updating its current Unveiling Unconscious Bias training to focus on board members, your critical roles, and how unconscious bias can affect your decision-making authority. The training will be self-paced and available in DCA's online learning management system, LMS. We anticipate launching this new training in early 2025, and board members will be required to take it annually. As a reminder, DCA offers over 20 online DEI training courses in its learning management system. While these courses are not mandatory, board members and board leaders are strongly encouraged to take these trainings, as you are instrumental in leading department-wide change. Next is the Military Licensing Resources webinar. To support and maximize outreach to our military community, DCA hosted a second live webinar on November 21st, 2024, to share information about military licensing resources. During the webinar, attendees learned about licensing resources available to members of the military and their spouses or domestic partners. The webinar featured a demonstration of DCA's federal professional license portal and state registration process and a Q&A session. Next is the Season of Giving. We are officially in the Season of Giving, and DCA is honored to join in the annual charitable campaigns, DCA's annual Turkey Drive and the State Our Promise campaign. Turkey Drive. On November 13th, DCA held its annual Turkey Drive, collecting over 2,000 pounds of food, including 110 turkeys, to help local families in need celebrate Thanksgiving and feed their families through Sacramento-based Joey's Food Locker and the Natomas Unified School District. Donations were available to families during Joey's Food Locker Turkey Drive on November 22nd. Last year, DCA employees were part of the reason 769 families, or 3,315 people, celebrated Thanksgiving and fed their families. DCA was excited to once again make a difference in the lives of others and support the community. The giving spirit will continue, and DCA will join the state employees food drive and place boxes at various office locations to collect non-perishable food items directly benefiting a local food bank. Our Promise campaign launch, State Employees Giving at Work campaign. Every year through the Our Promise campaign, California State Employees Charitable Campaign state employees, including board members, have the opportunity to support the nonprofit causes they are passionate about through a payroll giving or one-time donation. These contributions have a positive impact on our communities and another way for DCA to show it cares for California. This year's campaign is led by Monica Vargas, Deputy Director of Communications, and Karen Navarro, Assistant Deputy Director of Communications. DCA's campaign officially launched on November 18th and runs through December 31st. In the meantime, please contact Board and Bureau Relations with any questions if you would like to have information on how you can give. Again, thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
This is Member Kleppa. I have a question, but I'll defer to anyone in the room to go first.
Oh, please proceed.
Okay. Yes, thank you for that presentation, especially on the training. That's always useful. My question is, we were told about safety training early on in my tenure on the board, that we would be given, first party shooter training, that type of thing, in case there was ever any problem in the boardroom. Never heard anything more about that after the announcement. When might the board receive that training? I'd like to be present for that.
Member Kleppa, this is the executive officer. I think, and I will double check, I think that training is available on the department's LMS, the learning management system. I will double check on that. Thanks for bringing that item back. But I'll double check on that. And if it is available, I can just send it out to the members to take. I believe it's like a recorded webinar that's available. So we'll check on that. And if it is, we'll send it out.
Thank you.
No one else has any comments? Thank you so much for coming today, and it was really great to hear about all of the success with the holiday food drive. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item will be the Budget Office Fund Condition. So members, with us from the Budget Office is Harmony DeFilippo, Budget Manager. She will present the board's revenues, expenditures, and fund condition.
Thank you,
Oh, okay.
and good morning. My name's Harmony DiFilippo, and I am a budget manager in the DCA Budget Office. I want to thank the board and the executive staff for allowing me a few minutes to present on agenda item 4B, the board's expenditure projections and fund condition statement. First, I'm going to start with the board's expenditures, which is attachment 4BI1 of your materials. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 3. This report includes 23-24 actual expenditures in green, as well as 24-25 budgeted and projected expenditures in blue and orange. As we move to the end of the document, you will see the board had a beginning base budget of $4.123 million and is projected to spend just shy of $3 million, creating a reversion to the board's fund of approximately $1.1 million, a reversion percentage of 27.93%. The next document I will go over is the board's revenue projections, which is page 2 of your materials. This report includes receipts collected through September and projected revenue to year end. I will go further into these projections as we transition into the next slide. The next document that I will go over is the board's fund condition statement, which is page 3 of your materials. As a reminder, we read this document from top to bottom and left to right. The left column is the board's prior year 23-24 actuals. It shows the board began 23-24 with a beginning balance of $1.765 million, collected $2.787 million in revenues, with $331,000 from initial license fees, $2.15 million from license renewals, and $305,000 was collected from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board expended $2.931 million, which includes $231,000 in direct draws to the fund from statewide pro rata and pension payments. The board ended 23-24 with $2.931 million reserve balance, or 10.7 months in reserve. For current year 24-25, the board projects revenues of a little over $3.35 million, with $522 projected from initial license fees, $2.5 million from renewal fees, and $284,000 from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board's 24-25 expenditures are based on the Budget Act with FM3 projections at $3.29 million between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of a little under $3 million, or 8 months in reserve. The Budget Office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditures and report back to the board monthly with expenditure projections as we continue to close out each fiscal month in the current year. A few things to note on the board's fund condition. The fund condition is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personnel service adjustments. These include general salary increases, as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The Budget Office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase to expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. You will also notice that revenue is projected static in the out years. Lastly, I would like to note to the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which could create cost pressures on the fund. The Budget Office again will continue to monitor the board's fund condition statement and keep a line of communication open with the board's executive staff for any future needs or expectations. Again, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present at today's meeting, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Is there any comment from the members?
I have a couple questions, but again, I'll defer to the room before I get started.
Oh, please go ahead.
Okay, this is Member Kleppa. Thank you for the presentation. I had some questions on page 3, the one we're on now.
Okay.
You were talking about various fees from fines and other items that the board recognizes as revenue. I was looking for that. as a category under the revenue section. I didn't see fines explicitly. Where is that located within revenues, transfers, and other adjustments, assuming I'm looking in the right place?
So you're going to find that in a couple of different categories. So we're looking at the first, under the revenues, the first one. So you've got your delinquent fees. So there's delinquent fees within that category. And then your other regulatory fees includes duplicates as well as things like cite and fine, duplicate wall certificate, things like that. And then the other revenue category on the revenue projections, which is broken out a little bit further here on the fund condition statement, which is your income from surplus investment, your unclaimed checks and warrants, miscellaneous revenue, dishonored checks, things like that.
Okay, those last set of categories I'm not seeing on this page. Is that on a different page?
So that is on this fund condition. So you can see it is the fifth line. So you can see income from surplus money investment. And then the line directly below that is your unclaimed checks and warrants. So some of the other categories get grouped up into that. So it's more like your main category and then there's subcategories.
Okay, so we're just not seeing the subcategories within the main categories, right?
That is correct.
Okay, well, a couple more questions then. Third from the top, same section, other regulatory fees. You see that there?
Yes.
Okay, 23-24, it's at 156, 24-25, it's at 153, 25-26, it drops significantly to 18. Why should we expect such a significant drop in that period?
So this is based off of the Budget Act. And so this has not been updated. So what you're seeing as actuals for prior years, what truly came in for the other regulatory fees. And then of course, this year for current year is what we're projecting. After the release of the governor's budget on January 10th, you will see the revenue in budget year and budget year +1 will be updated and it will reflect a little bit closer to the trend that you see in our projections and actuals from prior year.
Excellent. So similar regarding the fifth one down from the top, income from surplus money investments, it drops off significantly in 25-26. Same explanation?
So the income surplus investment is actually a formula that looks at the beginning balance on the fund condition statement as well as the revenues that are collected. And so that's formula driven and those out years are based off of that, as where the current year is based off of what we are projecting and with prior year actual. So you will also see that number will always fluctuate based off of what the beginning balance and the revenues collected and the end balance.
Okay, I understand. Right. No, I understand how it's determined. My question is, why is it dropping so significantly? Is it because we're waiting for more information to come in before we can project that more accurately? Is that the issue?
What's looking at, so if you're looking at the fund condition statement, it's looking at basically the beginning budget for budget year. And so that number fluctuates as well as the revenues that we're projecting. So once we update those revenues in budget year and budget year +1 with the new workload revenue, that number will change as well as we move through, as you can see in budget year, the ending balance is 1.6 million, as where the ending balance for this year is 2.9. So it's the formula is looking at all of those in its calculations, and so that's why you see such a difference.
All right. So
Member Kleppa, I think at the spring meeting in 25, probably our first quarter meeting at 25, because we'll be after when the governor's budget is released, you'll see those numbers updated to reflect that new information.
and that's all I really wanted to confirm with the speaker, that income from surplus money investments should also change when that new budget comes out, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I think we're all on the same page then. Good. That's pretty much all I had. Thank you.
Of course.
This is Member Garcia. I just have a comment. I just wanted to commend EO Prudent and the staff for doing such a great job with our fund condition Those of us who have been on the board for a while have seen this improve drastically since he onboarded. So just a commendation for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Is there any public comment from those in the audience? Seeing none, are there any comments from those on the phone?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the budget report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments on the budget report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will take a 5-minute break before our next item, which will be the petition. So we'll be back in 5. Okay. Welcome back. We are now on item number 5, a petition for early termination of probation with optometrist Peter Tien, and we have our Deputy Attorney General Bright and our Administrative Law Judge Block with us. So I will hand it over to you.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, before we get started, are we in closed session right now?
So this portion will be open and then we will move into closed session for discussion.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Bernard, ready to go on record? All right, we're on record before the California State Board of Optometry to review the petition for early termination of probation of Peter Tien. This is board case number 420-2022-000073, Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2024-100-661. My name is Matt Block. I'm a ALJ with the Office of Administrative Hearings in Sacramento, assigned to preside over this matter. What I would like to do is have all members of the board identify themselves for our records, starting with the board member farthest to my right.
My name is Alex Clemens.
I am Joseph Pruitt.
My name is Uni Linden.
Lillian Wong.
Stacy Bragg.
Martin Dawson.
And I know we have 2 board members appearing remotely.
I'm Robert Kleppa.
Yeah, my name is Jeffrey Garcia.
Good morning to everyone. Quorum of the board is present. May I take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Megan Bright, Deputy Attorney General. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I am here to assist the Administrative Law Judge and the Board of Optometry in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the Administrative Law Judge and the Board of Optometry have adequate information from which to make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bright. And Dr. Tien is present. You are representing yourself, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So before the hearing, Dr. Tien, you and I and Ms. Bright had the opportunity to talk about the procedure that will follow this morning. As I explained, Ms. Bright will proceed first to provide an overview of your case and present your petition. Following that, you'll have the opportunity to testify under oath, to call any witnesses if you choose to introduce evidentiary documents if you choose to. Although I do note that you've submitted supporting documentation with your petition, which the board has had the ability and the opportunity to review. That said, because the board has had the opportunity to review that, in your presentation, it's not necessary to go over everything that you've included in that petition, but the board will likely have some questions for you. Ms. Bright may have some questions for you as well. After the hearing, the matter will be submitted. The board will go into closed session for deliberations. You're not going to hear the outcome of the petition hearing today, but at a date in the future, okay?
Okay.
As I said earlier, if you have any questions during the hearing, let me know. I can't give you legal advice, but I may be able to help you explain why we're doing or saying certain things, all right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, Ms. Bright, I will turn to you.
Okay, would you prefer I do the background first and then the evidence, or?
Whichever you think is best.
Okay, I'm going to start with the exhibits. What has been previously marked as Exhibit 1, and for the board members' reference, it's pages 1 through 5, consists of jurisdictional documents, including the notice of hearing and proof of service. We ask that Exhibit 1 be admitted for jurisdictional purposes at this time.
Dr. Tien, do you have any objection to that?
No.
Exhibit 1 is admitted for jurisdictional purposes.
What has been previously marked as Exhibit 2, pages 6 through 7, consists of a certified copy of petitioner's license history certification. We ask that Exhibit 2 be admitted for all purposes at this time.
Any objection, Dr. Tien?
No.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
What has been previously marked as Exhibit 3 and is pages 8 through 21 is the petition for early termination of probation and supporting documents dated July 3rd, 2024, and generally consists of petitioner's written answers to petition questions and 3 letters of support. We ask that Exhibit 3 be admitted for all purposes at this time.
Any objection, Dr. Tien?
No.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
What has been previously marked as Exhibit 4 and is pages 22 through 45 is a copy of the board's previous decision and order in this matter. We ask that Exhibit 4 be admitted for all purposes.
Any objection, Dr. Tien?
No.
4 is admitted.
Okay, and now I will provide a background on why we are here today. The board issued license number OPT 33489 to petitioner on July 6, 2016. On or about July 22nd, 2022, the board filed an accusation against petitioner. The allegations alleged in the accusation were the following violations: unprofessional conduct under Business and Professions Code Section 3110, subdivisions A and S, assisting in the unlicensed practice of optometry; unprofessional conduct under Business and Professions Code Section 3110, subdivision T, employment of an unlicensed person for work which required an optometry license; and unprofessional conduct under Business and Professions Code Sections 3110, subdivision A, 3040, subdivision A, and 3101 for assisting an unlicensed person in holding themselves out as a licensed optometrist. Petitioners' alleged violations were based off the following underlying conduct. On or about September 1st, 2021, petitioner was employed as an optometrist at Specialty Eye Care and was responsible for supervising the work of an assistant who was not a licensed optometrist. During an examination, petitioner permitted the assistant to perform the entire examination, including tests that may only be performed by a licensed optometrist, such as anterior segment examination, fundoscopic examination, and subjective refraction examination. At all times during this examination, the assistant wore a white lab coat that bore the title OD. Petitioner then wrote an eyeglass prescription for the patient, even though he had not participated in the examination or interacted with the patient. On April 25th, 2023, a decision and order was issued adopting a stipulated settlement. The decision became effective May 25, 2023. The settlement ordered petitioner's license to be placed on probation for 3 years and comply with certain terms and conditions. The terms and conditions are as follows. Petitioner is required to participate in quarterly compliance reports, participate in probation monitoring and pay probation monitoring costs, function as an optometrist at least 60 hours per month, reimburse the board for its costs investigating and litigating the case in the amount of $4,480, take and pass the California Law and Regulations examination, participate in at least 10 hours per month of community service, maintain a valid license status, participate in quarterly audits, and take a medical record keeping course. On or about June 4th, 2024, petitioner petitioned for early termination of probation. To date, petitioner has paid all outstanding costs to the board and is in compliance with his probation. Because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statement at this time, but reserve the right to question petitioner.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bright. Dr. Tien, do you wish to testify at this point?
Yes.
Would you please raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Because you're representing yourself, doctor, I am going to allow you to testify freely in the narrative. This is your opportunity to tell the board what you think it needs to know to decide the case fairly. Board is particularly concerned with any rehabilitative efforts you may have participated in since the discipline to your license. When you're done with your testimony, let me know. As I said, when we spoke earlier, Ms. Bright will likely have some questions, and then I'll then turn it over to the board members for questions as well. But at this juncture, I am going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, distinguished board members and Deputy Attorney General Bright, thank you so much for your time and consideration today. I'm here before all of you to petition an early termination to my probation. As you have already heard, I'm currently serving a 3-year probation. I take full responsibility for my actions. I let my trust in an ophthalmologist whom I had worked with for 5 years and my nativity get the best of me. I admit to my lack of knowledge in allowing an unlicensed new graduate of optometry practice the scope of optometry. As part of my probation, I was required to take the California Law and Regulations exam. I studied for the exam for 2 months. However, unfortunately, I did not pass, which led to a cascade of events that resulted in a lot of emotional and financial hardship for me and my family. Due to my failure of the exam, a cease practice order was placed until I passed the exam, but I had to wait 180 days until I was eligible to take the exam again. Because I could no longer practice, I was terminated from my job and unemployed. I did try to look for employment, such as an optometric assistant or a receptionist, but to no success due to my situation. With a family to support, I was under an immense amount of stress. Once I was eligible to take the exam again, I thankfully passed and the cease practice order lifted. However, it was very difficult still to find employment due to my probation status. It was and still is very difficult getting credentialed with insurance panels, which have led to potential employers from hiring me or even past employers from rehiring me. I plead to all of you to please terminate my probation so I can have a chance in finding a more stable job to support my family. I've learned my lesson. I've taken the California Law and Regulations exam twice. I've taken a medical record keeping course, and I've been in good standing during my probation thus far. To prevent any of this from happening again in the future, I will uphold myself to the highest standard of optometric care. I will stay up to date on the laws and regulations that govern optometry. I will seek help from the California State Board of Optometry when needed. I will use this entire experience as a life lesson going forth. Please help me and my family by early termination of my probation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tien. Ms. Bright.
Thank you. Dr. Tien, in 2021, you allowed an unlicensed person to practice as an optometrist, correct?
Yes,
And this person was unlicensed when they conducted several examinations that only a licensed optometrist may perform, correct?
that's correct.
And you were in charge of supervising this person when those examinations were conducted, correct?
Yes,
And you were aware that they were not yet licensed when you allowed them to conduct those exams?
yes.
So why did you allow an unlicensed person to practice?
At that time, I was employed by an ophthalmologist and who I was working with for 5 years. And he basically gave me the advice that said that the unlicensed new graduate of optometry could practice under my supervision. So I just trusted him. I was just naive. I've worked with him for 5 years and I thought it was okay.
And so what have you learned from that experience of trusting your supervisor at the time?
I mean, I definitely have to, and now that I know the California laws and regulations that govern optometry, um, I just, yeah, I know that I shouldn't have let that happen. I think in the future, I would look more into, if something sounds a little bit sketchy, I definitely would consult the California Board of Optometry and see if it's correct or not.
So you signed a stipulated settlement in March of 2023, right?
Yes.
And that settlement was for 3 years of probation?
Yes.
Why did you agree to 3 years probation now you're asking to terminate it early?
Because during the 3-year probation I had agreed to, I didn't count on failing the California law exam the first time and having a cease practice order placed and being terminated from my job.
So because your situation has changed,
Yes.
correct? That you no longer think you need to complete 3 years of probation? Can you clarify that a little bit more for me?
I think with my current situation, it has changed. It's hard for me to find a stable job to support me and my family. Um, it's it's just it's just really hard.
While on probation, it's harder to find a job.
Yes.
Okay. What have you done to educate yourself on your legal and ethical responsibilities as an optometrist?
Legally, I've been keeping up to date with the California laws and regulations that govern optometry. I've read different cases of malpractice with optometry. What else have I done? I've read optometric literature in regards to new and updated standards of care for optometry.
You submitted 3 letters of support as part of your petition. Were each of these people aware of the conduct that resulted in your probation before they wrote the letters?
Yes.
And what assurances can you provide the board that you will not engage in this conduct again?
Just the entire situation that has happened to me, having disciplinary actions against me from the board, losing my job, struggling financially and emotionally. I think it's a life lesson I'll never forget.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Bright. I will now turn to the board members for questions, starting with Mr. Clemens.
Thank you for appearing here today and making your case. This is a question to the Deputy AG. I'm curious whether there was any investigation of Dr. Hovhanessian, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. I read in the documents that the initial advice that Dr. Tien was given came from Dr. Hovhanessian. Is there any light you can shed on that?
I am unaware of any investigation into any other party in this case. I'm sorry.
To the ALJ, is it appropriate to ask Dr. Tien if he has any information about that?
Typically, what we're trying to do is focus on his rehabilitative efforts, so that's probably what I would gear questions toward.
Thank you.
Dr. Pruitt.
Hello. Thank you again for your testimony. My only kind of general question would be for when this took place, this was 2021, so this was right in the midst of COVID. Was there a particular reason the person you were signing the prescriptions for was not licensed at the time?
No, he was just waiting for his license to be issued by the State Board of Optometry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Linden.
I have no questions.
Okay. Dr. Wong.
Thank you for your testimony, and I don't have any questions either.
All right, Dr. Bragg.
Thank you for your testimony. I just did have one question. On the form, the petition for reduction of penalty, early termination, it asks about your work history. And I note that it says from Kaiser, you worked until August 2023, and the cease practice was July 24. So was there a week that you were practicing after the cease practice order had been in place?
No, sorry, that might have been a personal mistake on that. But I had stopped practicing once the cease order was placed. And during that day when the cease order had been placed, my probation officer had spoke to me, and I didn't see any patients after.
And then I just wanted clarification from the DAG about all of the other probation requirements. I know the law exam, but the quarterly reports have been submitted, and the notice from the employer and the employer's acknowledgement of the probation status had also been received.
It is my understanding that he's in compliance with all
Okay.
probation requirements, yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dawson.
Dr. Ten, thank you for coming and presenting your case. I do have a couple questions. In your statement, initially you took responsibility for your actions, but then you stated that it was the ophthalmologist who said that it was okay to do it. Were you taking responsibility, or were you saying that it was somebody else's responsibility or fault that this happened?
No, I take full responsibility. As a practicing optometrist, I should have known better. I should have known that under California laws and regulations that govern optometry, that this unlicensed new graduate should not have practiced any scope of optometry.
Thank you. And that does segue into my second question. You were trained and received information and training prior to your own licensing regarding the requirements of a person to be licensed before performing such examination. So you were aware of it at the time, correct?
At the time, yes, I was aware of it. I think my true fault is that this new graduate was waiting to be licensed from the State Board of Optometry. He had already met all the requirements to be licensed and just was waiting for his license to be issued.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Garcia.
Yeah, Dr. Tian, thank you for coming in and presenting your case today, and also thank you for taking responsibility for your actions. I have no other further questions.
Thank you. And Mr. Kleppa.
Just a couple questions. Dr. Tien, you indicated in your written statement, and you may have also testified to this, that you undertook various actions in regards to your probation. You indicated, for instance, that you completed a medical record keeping course through UC San Diego. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you submit a copy of the course completion certificate to the board or the ALJ?
I did submit it to my probation officer.
Okay, so there is a record of that. Excellent. You also indicated in your written statement that you were practicing, at least at the time the statement was submitted, with the Bin Nguyen Optometric Corporation. Is that true, sir?
Sorry, could you repeat yourself?
Sure. At the time that your statement was submitted, it says here, on February 26, 2024, I was hired as an optometrist, maybe I'm mispronouncing it, by Bin Nguyen Optometric Corporation in Burbank. Was that correct, sir? Were you hired by them at that time?
That is correct.
Are you still working for them now?
I currently am still working for them.
And You also indicated that you were doing 10 hours of community service with Habitat for Humanity. Are you still undertaking that community service?
Yes.
And my last question actually is to the Attorney General representative. Does the state have a position, at least, do you have a position on this petition?
Our office does not take positions in these cases. We're simply here to facilitate and make sure the board has all the factual information.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bright, any further questions of Dr. Tien?
No, Your Honor.
Any further questions from the board? Dr. Tien, I will turn back to you. Is there anything more you would like to say?
Yes, Your Honor. Just going off of Mr. Kleppa, I am currently employed by Dr. Ben Nguyen. However, it's a part-time position and I'm only working 2 to 3 days a week. Like I said before in my testimony, I'm trying to find a more permanent, full-time, stable job with benefits to support me and my family.
Thank you, Doctor. As I said, the board will now go into closed session for deliberation. You won't have an answer today, but you will be notified of the board's decision at a date in the future. I join the board in thanking you for appearing this morning, making your presentation. Anything further you would like to say before we close?
No, Your Honor. And I want to thank you very much for you and the Deputy General and board members for all your time today.
Thank you, Doctor. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
With that, the matter is submitted, the record is closed, and we are off the record. Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
This is the moderator. We are now ready to move into closed session if the board desires.
Okay. Yes, let's move into closed session.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, what was that? Yeah, like a five-minute break? Yeah, let's take a short 5-minute break before we move into closed session.
Mr.
All right.
Bernard, I have 10:27 as our end time.
Yes, and 27 pages.
All right, thank you.
Moderator, we're all back in the room and online. Are we good to go?
You certainly are.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're back in open session and we are on agenda item 7, discussion and possible action on board president's report with President Garcia.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So I just wanted to first apologize for not being there in person. This was the first meeting I've ever missed in person, but I believe it'll be my last. But again, my apologies and thank you, Vice President, for running such a great meeting. I just want to first kind of cover our board member schedule for next month. I know it's in your pamphlets, in your handouts, and I know we've already discussed it, but just as a reminder, I'm going to go over the board meetings so you can put those in your calendars and your phones if you haven't already done so. The first one will be February 14th. I think that was mentioned earlier. And we have April 11th, and July 11th, and October 17th. So make sure those are in your calendars and pending. I think, having in-person meetings are really the best for the group. It's nice to see everyone's face. So I appreciate everyone being in person every month. So thank you very much. It's always good to see everybody in person. Second item I have is our Children's Vision Workshop. We have a vacancy on this board with member Sims having resigned. So we are short one member. So I just wanted to put that out there. If any one of you are interested in sitting in on this work group, please let me know. You don't have to decide today, but sometime soon so we can get that work group filled up again. Next item, just happy holidays to everybody. I want to wish everyone on the board and in the public out there a Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Please be safe. Down here in the Central California, it's actually very foggy right now, so I'm not sure what it's like up in Sacramento. But please be safe and enjoy. Next item I have is just a public service announcement. Many of us make our medical appointments around the holidays and vacations, and I just want to encourage all Californians and our board members to make an appointment for your eye examination with your local optometrist and to do so annually. Primary care is critical because it acts as a foundation for maintaining optimal eye care and overall health care by providing early detection and treatment of various eye and general health conditions like glaucoma, cataracts, macular degeneration, diabetes, and hypertension, which can significantly improve treatment outcomes when detected early. So I encourage everyone to visit the board's website and to locate a licensed optometrist in good standing near you and make your appointment today. So that's all that I have as a president's report. But again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you for that. Now we can move on to agenda item number 8, discussion and possible action on executive officer's report. Gregory, please give us your update. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Linden. Members, this is agenda item 8, Executive Officer's Report. I'm going to start with item 8A, which is the program update. You have an item in your packet regarding this specific item. Again, item 8A. First announcement want to make, we've already made this, I believe, at the last board meeting, but wanted to just formalize for the board and members of the public that effective in September of this year, Brad Garding, who was an enforcement analyst on our team, has been promoted to our enforcement program manager position. Brad is here in the room today, and we're happy that he's joined us and has moved up into this position. One of the first jobs that you have to do when you've promoted into a managerial position is to begin the process to hire your replacement. And not only does Brad have that responsibility, but in November of this year, we lost another one of our analysts, Sydney, to a promotional position at another state department. So Brad is commencing 2 recruitments for 2 different enforcement analyst positions. We are in progress on those recruitments. Application period has closed, and we are reviewing applications and looking forward to conducting interviews for these 2 positions in the near future. Just last month, a little bit about 3 weeks ago, on the 18th of November, the hold that had been placed on the vacant positions that we had was lifted. The board may recall from discussions earlier this year, various board meetings, that given some of the budget challenges at the state level, vacancies were essentially held. You were not allowed to fill many of your vacant positions. There were a few exceptions to that. An exception, as an example, an exception was if you had a position that was not vacant that then became vacant, you were eligible to recruit for that position. So we had a few vacant positions that were subject to this hold. It's now been lifted. One of the positions that was caught up in that hold is our policy analyst position. This is a position that has been vacant for more than a year now. We are looking forward to restarting the recruitment on that position and likely looking to do that in the first quarter of the new year. Following that topic, or the topic of vacant position hold, we also had to identify positions that we would be comfortable giving up. And we identified 2 of those positions on our org chart. We were fortunate enough to identify positions that don't impact any current staff, meaning these identified positions were not promotional opportunities for any existing staff. We now have formal approval to remove those 2 positions effective July 1st of next year. And in your board packet, we've identified those 2 positions for you. One is an office technician and one is a management services technician. These are entry-level positions within our board. So effective July 1st of 2025, these 2 positions will be removed from our org chart. A copy of the current org chart is included at the back of this memo. And right now you'll see that it identifies 17.4 positions. That is how many positions we have authorized in our program. Please note again that 2 of those positions, they actually don't add up to a numerical 2, they add up to a 1.4. Are the 2 positions that we've identified to remove, the OT position and the MST position. So we will be at 16 positions effective July 1 next year. So your org chart is included there. You'll see we do have a few other 2 other vacancies on that org chart that we don't have any current plans to fill at this time. One is in enforcement and one is in licensing. Moving on to number 2 on this item, some board updates, some board items. First is training. According to my tracking, all members are currently up to date on 2024 required trainings. I thank you members who recently took some of those last few trainings that we needed to complete. As we heard earlier today from the DCA update, there will be a new required training in 2025. This is the unconscious bias training for board members. This will be launched in the early part of the next of the new year, and you will be able to access this from the department's learning management system, or LMS. I also wanted to make the board aware of, or remind the board, I should say, of recently updated travel and expense reimbursement policies and guidelines. Beginning in October of this year, DCA is now using the federal standard meals and incidental expense rates for both in-state and out-of-state travel. Including in your packet is some information regarding what those amounts look like. If you have any questions about this change or about the rates and how it all works, please feel free to reach out to Erica and myself. We'd be happy to help you with that. So wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. I believe we heard some updates on this from DCA earlier in the year, but it's now effective as of October. Very excited to announce this next item. This has been what feels like a long time coming. The 2024 Law and Regulations book was officially released on December 2nd. It's posted on our website. There's a link in your packet directly to that new 2024 Law and Regulations book. As the board may recall, this was a book. It's essentially a compendium of all of the laws and regulations that are relevant to the practice of optometry and opticianry in the state of California. This book had not been updated by the board for about 4 years. We received a lot of questions from the schools and students regarding this. So very happy that we were able to put this together. Thank you to Erica on our team who led the charge on the contract and the whole process. So thank you very much for taking that on. Like I said, it's out, it's public. We're gonna listserv it soon, and we will include it in our winter newsletter as well. That's in process, but very much looking forward to the students and others that are interested being able to utilize this book. We do plan on updating it yearly, and so that is a process that we're looking forward to start in the new year. The next item, we heard a little bit about this as well earlier today from the DCA update, but I wanted to include some more of the specifics and some of the links within the packet here for you all members to be able to access if you're so inclined. So this is the Our Promise campaign launch, state employees given at work campaign. This is, as we heard earlier today, something that the state and this department engages in every year. It's also on the sidelines, if you will, with the turkey drive and other food drive and other efforts that both this department and state employees overall are engaged in to give back to our local and state community. So please take a look at that information. If you have any questions about how you can give, please feel free to reach out to myself, Erica, and we'd be happy to help you. Some outreach and committee information and updates. The Practice and Education Committee met on October 11th, most recently approved several new course offerings. That committee will meet for its final time this year on Monday, December 9th. So a reminder to the three committee members on that date. Thank you, committee members, for being flexible and agreeable to this new December 9th date. As you all know, we had some technological challenges recently on our November meeting. So we're looking forward to finalizing this last PEC meeting for the year. Our telehealth and emerging technologies work group met recently as well on Halloween. It was our first initial discussion and review of some technologies and various state laws governing optometric telehealth. Looking forward to engaging with that work group and having more meetings in the near future as we continue to learn and talk about that issue. I recently had the opportunity to travel to Marshall B. Ketchum University, which is one of the 3 optometric colleges located in California. I was there on November 20th. I was able to participate in a meeting with all 3 of the California schools. That's again, Ketchum, Western, and Berkeley, as well as the association. Really good opportunity to dialogue and talk about issues of mutual interest. One of the big conversations that we had at that meeting was about exam scores and that issue of exam scores dropping over the last several years. So looking forward to engaging more in the future with that group. We try to meet both in the spring and in the fall. This was only the second time that I've been able to participate in those meetings. So looking forward to continuing to dialogue with our school partners and the state association as well. Our winter edition of the board's newsletter, The Spectacle, is in design and editing right now with DCA. We're expecting to release that on, I believe it's Friday, January 3rd, that first Friday of the year. So looking forward to getting that winter newsletter out soon. Again, the org chart for this item is attached at the end of item 8A. Happy to take any questions or comments from members on item 8A, program update.
I have a question, but I'll defer to the room until you guys are ready for me.
I don't see any questions in the room at the moment. I think floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Just on the one issue, the 2024 Law and Regulations book, I just took a fast look at it. I'm glad you guys were able to get that together. That looks like it's all various code sections, right? Business and Professions Code and the like, right?
Yeah, BPC, Business Professions Code, Education Code, Health and Safety Code, Corporations Code. There's a lot of different codes in there.
Fair enough. So all our disciplinary regulations, those are still in process, and those are going to be coming hopefully next year, right?
All regulations that affect optometry and opticianry that are in law are included in that book. Proposed regulations would not be. So to answer your question specifically, we have disciplinary guidelines for optometry. Those should be included. We do not have disciplinary guidelines regulation for opticianry, so those would not be.
Okay. I didn't see the regulations. Is it at the end then?
Yeah, I believe the regulations are at the end of that document.
Okay, I'll take a look.
There's a
That's
table
all
of
I had.
contents.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions from members in the room? We'll move on. Oh, sorry. We will take public comment on each item.
Can you hear me? Yes. So, no, Greg, I want to thank you publicly. You did join us virtually this year to explain licensings for opticians. And we're hoping this next year you'll join us virtually, especially because we're opening up more opticianry programs. And we do look forward to that happening. But you have helped us quite a bit. I know last year you helped us explain. You came to our conference, but you did help us this year. It was tremendous for us to understand what does it mean to be licensed. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Ruby. I would just say that I would love to join the group in person. The virtual event that you're talking about earlier this year, I think we were caught up in some of the travel restrictions with the state budget, and so I wasn't able to join y'all for that one. But going forward, I would love to be there in person.
Is there any public comment on the phone?
Thank you. This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the first portion of the Executive Officer Report, you may look for the hand icon and click that, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. Are there any comments on the program update portion of the Executive Officer Report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we will move on to agenda item 8B. This is the Executive Officer's Report Enforcement Program. I already mentioned just a moment ago about welcoming Mr. Garden to our enforcement team as the new manager. We're also, as I mentioned earlier, going to be hiring two positions on the enforcement team, analyst positions to work complaints and enforcement cases. One of these positions we did modify and change their duty statement ever so slightly to give this position, I think it's about 15 to 20% of their duties involving continuing education audits. Right now, we only have one staff on team that has any responsibility for our CE audit program. And we would like to, not just as we've talked about as a board, increase the level of CE audits that we're doing, which would, one way of achieving that would be to have more people doing them. But I also don't think it's very smart to just lock knowledge into one position. When you lock knowledge into just one position, if that person never leaves, you have oftentimes some challenge in backfilling that knowledge base. So I bring in another person on to, it won't be the principal part of their duties, but it will be part of their duties. Looking forward to how that's going to improve and impact our CE program. We will look forward to hopefully introducing these two new staff members at our February board meeting. Moving along within this item are the stats for the enforcement program presented as we normally do. We have the optometry stats first, and then we move to the opticianry stats. One quarter of data has been fully completed. We're still in the middle of December, so we haven't fully completed quarter 2 data yet. So the enforcement stats are only reporting out the fully completed quarter 1. Not a whole lot of highlights to date yet. One of the things that we've talked about as a board last fiscal year, was the increase in last fiscal year's overall complaints compared to the prior year. One of the main reason for that was an internally generated complaints, largely having to do with unlicensed activity. We finished last year on the optometry side with around 400 complaints, just under that number. And right now we're trending this year to be under that number. So there was, again, a pretty big growth from 22-23 to 23-24 in the overall complaints. I'm not seeing right now that there's going to be a lot of more growth this fiscal year compared to last. Again, most of the increase in those complaints last year had to do with internally staff generated unlicensed activity cases. Moving down within citations, you see that citations right now for the optometry program, we've issued 15. We did 53 total citations last year. Most of those citations on the optometry program are continuing education related. And right now, trending wise, we're trending to have slightly more citations on the optometry side than we did last year. Average days to close are very, very low because again, these are CE citations and the process is just fundamentally different for how a CE citation complaint and case works its way through compared to virtually any other complaint that might lead to a citation. I point that out as it regards the optometry stats because if you look at the opticianry stats for citations, you see that the days to close are quite substantial compared to what you see on the optometry side. Those are two citations that have led to that long average days to close. And one of those cases involved a pretty complex investigation that led to that amount of time. Another case has to do just quite honestly with just some of the challenges I think the board had in the last couple years with some of our staffing and how we were organized. We didn't have an enforcement manager until the late summer of 2022. And so I think one of these cases, some of the length of time, just to be quite honest, has to do with that factor. It probably could have been worked a little closer, or excuse me, a little quicker. The good news is that we did finalize these cases. We did issue citations, but I wanted to just make the board aware that the length of time to close those cases and issue those citations is quite lengthy, and really should not have taken that long. But we understand why those two cases took that long, and we'll endeavor to not have that situation happen again. So those were the main highlights that I wanted to mention for the enforcement stats. There are also the continuing education audit stats. As we've been talking about at every board meeting now, we present the CE audit stats separately. You will see with, again, 1 quarter complete, how those audits are going in that first quarter. I'm encouraged that the pass rate is higher than the overall pass rate was last year. However, I still don't think that this pass rate is high enough. I would like that pass rate to be ideally 100%. But the fact that it's higher than where we were last year, although it's only 1 quarter of data so far, is encouraging. We have done 39 total audits in that first quarter, 30 passed and 9 failed for a pass rate of 77%. So we look forward to reporting more data regarding these enforcement stats at future board meetings, but happy to take any questions from the members about these stats today.
Once again, I have questions, but I'll defer to the room until you're ready for me.
I don't see any questions in the room.
Okay, you referenced various stats and various trends, but I wasn't quite sure which item numbers you were going back and forth to. So that was my confusion during your presentation. What item numbers did you cover in the presentation you just finished?
So I was initially talking about, in terms of trends, I was talking about how last fiscal year, in fiscal year 23-24, the overall number of complaints that the board dealt with was substantially higher. It was about 87-90% higher in 23-24 than it was in the fiscal year prior to that, 22-23. And so why was that? And we talked at previous meetings that the bulk of that increase was staff internally generated unlicensed activity cases. The enforcement staff frequently and routinely is actively looking using internet and other sources for unlicensed activity. And when we find those, that leads to an internally generated complaint that we're working. There was a sizable increase in the amount of unlicensed cases that we had identified last fiscal year, which led to that increase.
I understand what you said, and I understood the reasons. What I couldn't do was match that to, was it 8CI? Was it
Oh,
8BII?
I
That's
see.
what I
I'm
couldn't
sorry. I'm in 8BI, enforcement
Okay.
stats.
So 8BI, let me just find that. Okay, I have CI, BII, CD, I have B. Okay, for some reason I never got to 8BI, so I just don't have that in front of me, and I guess that's my fault and not yours. So that would explain why I couldn't follow along. I couldn't figure out what chart we were on.
That makes sense.
So I'll,
You should be able to access it from the box link, member Kleppo. Alternatively, you can access it from the agenda that's on our website.
all right, I will try and pull that up. I don't want to interrupt your presentation while I'm looking for that. So please proceed. I'll see if I can find that.
Okay. Do any members in the room have any questions on the enforcement stats? Okay. Since we are taking, I think, public comment on all these items, I don't want to move to public comment before Member Kleppa has had a chance to find the stats and look through them to see if he has more questions. Council, is it okay if I move to item 8C and then come back to it? Okay. Member Kleppa, if you're okay with that, I'll move to 8C, and then if you have questions for 8BI, or we can come back to that if that's okay.
Yeah, please do. Though I just found 8BI in the box.
Okay.
So just briefly, the category you were looking at for the increase, could you direct me to what the title is? Case complexity, case category, complaints intake? Which was the one that showed the jump?
Yeah, so if you look at right at the top, case complexity, you'll see the total number of complaints that we got last fiscal year, 397. And then right next to that, you'll see how many we have in the first quarter, 85. So part of what I was trying to say is that while we had a sizable increase in our complaints from 22-23 to 23-24, we're not seeing that sizable increase trend continuing so far in the current fiscal year, 24-25. If we just look at the 85 cases and times that by 4, we're going to be less than where we were last year. So I know it's just one quarter of data. This can obviously change as we continue to move throughout the year. But that's all I was trying to communicate, is that the trend line that we saw last year of a pretty sizable and noticeable increase in the overall number of complaints does not appear to be continuing so far in this fiscal year.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you for the clarification. Please go ahead and proceed.
Let's take public comment then, yeah.
Any public comment from anyone in the room? There appears to be none. Is there any public comment on the phone?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the executive officer's enforcement report statistical review, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Are there any comments on the statistical review? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Oh, yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. We will move on to agenda item 8C, Executive Officer's Report, Examination and Licensing Programs. As we do from board meeting to board meeting, within that time period, we are constantly actively working with Breeze folks, our IT folks, making updates, making changes. The last several months have been fairly heavy on mobile optometric office. I think I've lost track of how many what we call BMOs we have worked on. These are the various tickets, if you will, that have to happen to implement a new application, which is what the mobile optometric office program is. So we've spent a lot of time over the last several weeks doing the IT and business process testing that we need to do to get the MOO program, the mobile optometric office program, online and on Breeze. We've also spent a decent amount of time working on the home residence permit program, which is another application that we're going to have to open and make available on the Breeze platform. I'll have more to say in the next item about the regulatory aspects of these two programs, but the bulk of our IT work and Breeze work the last several weeks, month or two, have involved these two programs. We also recently, and we talked about this at our October board meeting, tried to simplify the application process for our opticianry, for two of our opticianry applications. That's the spectacle lens dispenser application and the contact lens dispenser application. Both of those applications were previously two applications. You actually had to submit two applications and two payments, and you can only do one application and one payment, which had to be approved before you could do the second application and the second payment. And following both applications and both payments, you would be issued the registration and the license. That causes a lot of confusion, both for the applicant, and then it causes a lot of work for staff, having to respond to, hey, I just made this application and payment. Why don't I have my license? Because you have to go back to Breeze and make another application and a payment. We thought it would be a good idea to explore collapsing those two transactions into one, and we were able to do that successfully with spectacle and contact lens. I think from my perspective, it was much more successful and seamless than I think I ever thought it would be. And we're looking forward to bringing that same functionality, if you will, to the other two opticianry applications that we have, which is the registered dispensing ophthalmic business and the non-resident dispensing lens dispenser registration. We see a lot less volume in those applications than we do with the spectacle and contact, which is why we started with those two first. But again, that process change was fairly easy and seamless, and looking forward to doing the same thing for those other two application types. When you are looking at the stats, you will now see essentially a third transaction type, right, for the registered spectacle lens and registered contact lens. That's because, again, there previously were two transaction types that led to the license that gets all calculated in the processing time. Now there's one transaction, and so you will see this differentiated in the stats. We've started reporting at the last few board meetings just some, smaller level detailed stats around how many letters of verification and applications for retired or retired volunteer status. We've included that here in the packet. We received 61 requests for a verification letter. Verification letter is when you're licensed in California and you're seeking licensure in another state, that other state wants to see proof that you have license in that home state. And then 20 applications for retired and retired volunteer status. Moving along within the stats, let me pull those up. There are three attachments in agenda item 8CI, which are the actual stats. Attachment A really shows you both the volume that we received per application type in the quarter. It also tells you what we received for the total of last fiscal year. There's not really much of a highlight to point out within those stats. The next attachment is attachment B, just again, another visual display of the overall amount of licenses that we've issued, but this time broken down by the status. So current, delinquent, canceled, et cetera. And then the final one, which is really where you start to see some trend lines, is the processing times. So it's both application volume and processing time. We're doing really, really well overall on our processing times across all applications. I'm also encouraged to see, again, more people taking the optometry CLRE exam in the winter as opposed to in the spring. The benefit of doing that is right now it's a mandatory 6-month waiting period if you fail. And so if you waited until April, May to take your exam and you failed, 6 months is now the fall. And it's going to be much harder for you to find those job opportunities now. So we've been encouraging in our outreach and in messaging more folks taking these exams in the fall and winter, and starting to starting to see some of that show up in the data. Right now, our processing time for an initial license for an optometrist is only a few days. And we've made improvements on our processing time across every application that we issue, with the exception of SOL, because SOLs are essentially automatic and have a 0 or 1 day processing time. Every other application type that we issue requires staff work and analysis. And again, we've made improvements on our processing times across every application. Just since we're talking about licensing and examination issues right now, just a reminder for licensees that may be listening or tuning in later, your fictitious name permits all expire at the end of January, so January 31st by law. If you hold a fictitious name permit issued by the Board of Optometry, it will expire on January 31st. It does so every year. Those renewal applications are open and out and available now on your Breeze account. So we certainly encourage all FNP fictitious name permit holders to submit those renewals and avoid any delinquency fees that will happen on February 1st. So these are the licensing and examination stats. Happy to take questions or any comments from the members. Member Clemens.
Looking at attachment A.
Yep.
Since we're only dealing with one quarter, the first two columns are identical, but I am noticing something that is a bit confusing to me.
Okay.
I think I know the answer, but don't want to guess. Second set of data optometrist license.
Yep.
We approved more than we received.
Yeah.
Throughout, I'm assuming those are holdovers from the previous month, but it did raise a question in my mind. Are any of these ever denied? And would it be helpful to add a third data point to each of these? Received, approved, denied, or received, approved, withdrawn. I don't know, but I can't tell what this is.
Sure.
And with that data point, we might be able to.
Great question, great suggestion. The first part about approving more than we received. Remember, this is fiscal year data, right? So we might have received something in June, which is, again, with optometry graduates, they're graduating in mid-May. So we're receiving a lot of their applications in May and June. We receive it in June, fiscal year flips July 1, we approve it July. Now you'll see that. So that's how you can see more that were approved than were received. I like the suggestion about including denials. We would do that for all of the license types. There are very, very few denials. But I don't think that would be a bad thing to include, and we can certainly do that. Any other questions from members in the room? Questions online?
I have one question on item 8CI.
Yep.
The license status.
Sure.
Yeah, you go to that last big column of data, the last 4 columns, voluntary surrender, surrender, and revoked.
Yeah.
And then you have footnote 5. A little confusing, but I presume it meant to say that surrender and revoked are disciplinary actions. Is voluntary surrender a disciplinary action?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so that's as a result of an allegation, possibly then, right?
That'd probably be the type of case or scenario where somebody would be wanting to voluntary surrender, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah.
No one else has any questions. Is there any public comment in the room? There appears to be none. Is there any public comment on the phone?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the agenda report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Very good. We'll move on to agenda item 8D, regulatory update. There are three items within 8D that I will be updating the board and members of the public on. The first is the mobile optometric office regulations. Very, very happy to announce that these are done. The regulations were approved and took effect on October 9th. So very excited to finally have that package regulatory-wise done and behind us, if you will. Excuse me, as I was just mentioning in a recent item, we are hard at work right now on the IT and business implementation for the MOO package. There are several applications and transactions that have to be built and implemented and released on Breeze so that applicants are able to make application for a mobile optometric office. Just as a reminder, there are no paper applications for this application type. The regulatory design is only to use the Breeze portal. So we have to build everything out on that system, and that is what we are in the middle of doing. We anticipate that the business process requirements will be almost completely finished by January of 2025. What do I mean by almost completely finished? There will be some of the renewal aspects of the mobile optometric program that won't be done in January, but will be completed in the subsequent months, February, March, so on and so forth. But all of the initial applications and initial transaction work, we are on target for, I believe, January 2nd is the date. Obviously, if we will run into any challenges or issues with that date, we will communicate that to our stakeholders. I know there are several that are eagerly looking forward to this application being available. So we're very excited that we're done with the regs. Still have a little bit of work to do on the IT side, but making a lot of progress on that front. That's very similar for home residence permit. I'm also very happy to say that this one is done from a regulatory standpoint. It took effect on October 21st. This was a regulatory package that was even a little bit older than the MOO package. So excited to have this one behind us and done. Again, very similar to the MOO package. There's still some IT and business process requirements that have to be completed via the Breeze system. We are commencing that work and making progress toward those changes. We are hopeful that we can get home residence done in February. It's important to remember that Breeze releases only happen once a month, every month except for November and December. And you're limited in what you can change and what items you can put forward for every release. You're limited for at least a couple reasons. One, there's only so much you can work on, and there's only so much that the Breeze IT folks can work on. Breeze is a system shared by more than half the department, or approximately half the department. So there's a lot of changes happening every month from other programs as well. So we're hopeful that home residence will be online in February. It is a much, or I should say it should be a much simpler, easier IT process with Breeze than MOO. Because MOO is brand new applications, and there are several different types of applications for MOO. Home residence, you already have to be licensed as an optometrist to qualify for the home residence license. So it's kind of like an add-on or a bolt-on to that license. So given that, the IT process requirements are much easier than, should be much easier than MOO. There has been no further progress on items 3, 4, or 5, or 6 on the regulatory update. But we do know that this is the board's charge to work on these regulatory packages, and we will be making progress toward them. Having a policy analyst on the team would be greatly helpful to that work, as I am the person writing the regs with, of course, assistance of legal counsel. So to be honest, that's part of the reason why there hasn't been some work on those other packages. As I've updated the board in the past, when it comes to the disciplinary packages, while it's true that the not having a policy analyst has resulted in some of those activities not commencing, there are also some legal issues with the prior board approved disciplinary guideline packages that we need to revisit. We've talked about this at prior meetings. So we need to revisit them. We need to get to those packages, especially the opticianry disciplinary guidelines, because they aren't in place at all. And we will commence that work soon. The radio frequency technology regulatory package is item number 7. It's the last one on this list. The comment period for this package ended toward the end of September. The board received more than 150 comments on this package, and we've been, Reg Council and myself have been spending some time going through these comments. We've got to evaluate our next steps and how we might proceed on this regulatory package. We also, I don't want to say had a delay on it, but with mobile optometric and home residents taking effect in October and really needing to finalize the IT requirements with those two programs, fair to say that some of my resources and attention shifted to both MU and home residents and away from radio frequency for the moment. So that is the update on that item, radio frequency regulatory package, and that concludes the update for the regulatory item overall. Happy to take questions from the members in the room and online.
This is Member Wong. I just wanted to say thank you to you and staff for all your hard work for both the MU and the home residence package. It's been a long time coming and it's very appreciated.
Thank you. I will try to come back at the next meeting in February, and hopefully at that point, right, MU is all successful getting bolted on to Breeze in January, and come back at that meeting and try to have calculated for you all how many meetings and BMOs basically just calculate the work. I mean, just these past few weeks, licensing staff have been working on all of what we call the BMOs, the business management orders, I think I probably butchered the acronym, but it is the process that we engage in to turn the thing on into an online application. And there's a lot of testing that happens with that. It's a lot of back-end testing, making sure that the fees are correct, making sure that the letters that go out are correct, making sure that the certificates are correct, making sure the application can be accessed and all of those things. It's a lot of staff work to do all of that testing. So we'll want to give public credit to Arsha and Randy both, who've taken lead on most of that testing and work. We're greatly appreciative of the help from DCA and the staff on the IT side as well. But yeah, it's worth quantifying the amount of time and the amount of BMOs for MU is multiple dozens probably. So it's a lot to put new applications online. Appreciate your comments.
I just want to second that too. I think it's such an achievement that these regs are out and they're in effect right now. I think, a lot of times laws get passed and all these things get done. People might know about that process, but it's like for things to actually be implemented, just like you mentioned, all of these steps, I think a lot of things go on behind the scenes that most people are not aware of. And so, yeah, again, just thank you and everyone for getting this done. Yeah, it's a great achievement.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think once we pass it, we just assume it's going to happen, and everything that goes on to make it happen is immense. So again, thank you to you and staff, because this process has been going on for a very long time.
MU's been a long time, and I remember the bill in 2019. So.
Is there any other comments? Is there any public comment from the room?
I want just to ditto exactly. We're grateful because we feel the information you're providing is very organized and it's conveying that there's some progress going on, and we do thank you for that. And your whole staff is just wonderful. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the phone?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the executive officer's report, you can look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you can look for the question mark icon and click that. Type the word comment into the text box and click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments on the executive officer's report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Break for lunch.
Okay.
I think we can take an hour.
Okay. So I think what we'll do is we will take a break for lunch and come back in an hour. That works for everyone?
1:40?
Okay.
Say 1:40?
So we'll come back at 1:40. Okay, welcome back to our open session. We are on agenda item number 9, update and discussion and possible action on the 2025 Sunset Review Report. I'll just jump right in.
Well, before you do, Vice President Linden, I think we may, just because we took a long break, let's maybe reconstitute quorum and just take a roll call and just make it super official.
Thank you.
Member Clemens,
Present.
Member Dawson,
Present.
Member Kleppa,
Present.
Dr. Pruitt,
Here.
Dr. Wong. Present. Dr. Bragg, present. Vice President Linden,
Present.
President Garcia.
Present.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Thank you. Members, in October, we presented and discussed the draft Sunset Review report that staff in the Sunset Review Work Group collaborated on. Work on the report began in the spring, and the work group met several times to consider revisions and edits to the report now presented to you today. And today we must consider and approve the report in order for staff to transmit the report to the legislature by January 6th, the due date set by the legislative committees charged with conducting Sunset Review, the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee, and the Assembly Business and Professions Committee. Thank you to staff and our executive officer for all their time and hard work on the report. Following submittal of the report, the legislative committees will review it along with the submissions of the other boards and bureaus going through Sunset Review in 2025. Sunset Review hearings will be scheduled in the spring, and the president and executive officer will provide testimony and answer questions. Following that hearing, the legislature will expect written responses within 30 days to all issues identified. The Sunset Work Group and the executive officer will prepare those answers for board approval. While we do not yet know when the legislative hearing will be, we scheduled an April 11th, 2025 board meeting in the hope that the hearing will be the second or third week of March, like they have been for the past 2 years. I will now turn it over to our executive officer, who will walk us through a few items in this report that are different from the prior draft reviewed in October.
Thank you, Vice President Linden. Just one, before I get into a few of the changes from the prior report that I want to walk us through, maybe one other quick housekeeping item just on the report in terms of what will happen following today's action. As VP Linden just mentioned, we have a January 6th due date, but we also have holidays coming up between now and then, and we also have several other boards and bureaus within the department that are engaging in the same process and work that we are doing. So we have a timeline following today that we're going to have to strictly abide by. Following today's hearing next week, the report needs to be submitted to DCA for the design and printing aspect. In fact, I've already submitted part of the report for the design portion, but the printing aspect will wait until after we do what we're about to do today. I need to submit that final report next week, preferably by Wednesday of next week, with everything ready to go, ready to be printed, locked and loaded. So that's what we're looking. That's the timeline that we're looking at following today's action. a couple items that I want to walk us through. I'm not planning on taking us through page by page like we did in October. I certainly want members to bring any items, comments, questions, suggestions that they have on the report, bring that forward while we talk about this item. But there's just a couple items that I wanted to go over that are either different or in one case, something that we're still waiting for. The first item there is actually something that we're still waiting for, which is the final 23-24 exam data for the national exam. This is on page 45 of the Sunset report. It's table 8B. I've left it in yellow highlight for ease of viewing. Again, this is the 23-24 NBEO, National Board of Examiners of Optometry, national data. I don't anticipate any problem with receiving this data by next Wednesday in time to get the report over to our printing partners within DCA. I connected with NBEO just a few days ago, inquiring about this data. They're right in the middle of their process. Normally, this data is published in December. We're in December. I know that their board is reviewing the data, and I tried to underscore for them the importance of getting this data timely so we can include it in our report. And I don't have any expectation of that not happening. So that is the only item in this report that is that we're still waiting for. There is nothing, no other data element or any other narrative, if you will, that is missing. So that is the one item. Like I said, don't anticipate any issue with receiving that data. Just moving along, a couple areas of the report that I wanted to call out that have a little bit of difference from when we chatted last time. One of those differences, I'm trying to find the page number for you all, has to do with online practice issues. This is section 6 on page 66. That's a lot of sixes. Question 57, and it has to do with online practice and unlicensed activity. We talked a little bit about this at the last meeting. I talked a little bit about it earlier at today's meeting regarding unlicensed activity and how, for example, staff's efforts focusing on that issue in that area led to an increase in complaints in the past fiscal year. That was how we have spoken about this issue earlier today. So we've included in section 6 some of that information because it wasn't previously in the prior draft brought to the board. This is the second paragraph that you see in the answer to question 57. We're talking a little bit more clearly, if you will, about how we attack unlicensed activity, how we go after it, what our goal is there. Our goal really is to bring folks into compliance, but we will use our enforcement tools if we need to. That was one of the changes to the report that from the October edition that was previously reviewed. The next changes are in the prior issues section, which is section 9, beginning on page 74. And if we flip forward into issue 12 and issue 13. Issue 12 has to do with teleoptometry and emerging technologies. And so that is on page 85, issue 12. Our response to issue 12 is on page 87. We really shortened this response, if you will, compared to what was presented in the draft from October. If you look at our prior response that was offered to this question from 4 years ago, one of the things that we had said as a board at that time was that we were going to do further research and come up with a more comprehensive, or at least endeavor to come up with a more comprehensive telehealth policy in fiscal year 21-22. So far as I can tell, none of that happened. And we are, for the most part, a different board, a different executive officer than what was in place at that time. We had our first telehealth work group meeting a couple weeks following the October board meeting, and we had a really good conversation, a really good discussion in that meeting. And I think in thinking about that meeting and in thinking about this issue and this question and this topic, it seemed to make more sense to get back to doing what we said we were going to do in 2021 and 2022, which was to have our telehealth work group look at it, study it, and then report back. That's what we said we were going to do 4 years ago. We didn't do it. I would like to say that we're going to do that now and then actually follow through and have the work group come back to the board with that work having been done, with that report. So that is how question 12 or prior issue 12's updated response has changed. We are now saying that our telehealth and emerging technologies work group is going to be studying and reporting back to the board on this issue. Question 13, which is the very next, excuse me, I shouldn't say question 13, issue 13, which is the very next prior issue on page 88 and page 89. We also modified this answer, really, again, pointing back to the unlicensed activity narrative that we just discussed in question 57. So it's a much shorter answer, but we're talking about the unlicensed activity and how we go after that. And we bring forward in this response now, Business and Professions Code sections 148 and 149. 148 is the statutory code section that gives us the ability to issue unlicensed, to issue citations for unlicensed activity. 149 is a statute that provides a tool, an enforcement tool, to work with the Public Utilities Commission in California and have a telephone be disconnected. This is a tool that has been used by at least one other program within DCA to some success over the years. Admittedly, in an internet website era, I'm not sure what the utility of a telephone disconnect might be now compared to, say, 20, 30 years ago, sort of before the pre-internet era. But it is a tool. It's a tool that, so far as I can tell, this board has not used before. And to the extent we are having problems in the unlicensed activity space, which we've talked about with regard to, for example, out-of-state online sellers of contact and spectacle lenses, this might be a tool that this is a tool we should be looking to utilize and then seeing how successful it is or is not. So that's how issue number 13 has changed. The final substantive change in this report compared to what was presented to the board in October is in new issue number 2. So this is on page 101 of the Sunset Report. This is, compared to what was presented to the board in October, a completely different new issue 2. It's not a completely new issue in the report, if that makes sense. What we are saying in new issue 2 was contained in the October draft. It was part of other answers within the report, but was not its own new issue. What this new issue is the possibility of registering optical companies that advertise optometric services when those optical companies are in a landlord-tenant relationship with, for example, ophthalmology corporations. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this issue and try to, in hopes of providing some background and information about it. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what is an optometrist, what is an optician, how do they overlap, and how are they different? Well, an optometrist is an eye care doctor who examines, diagnoses, treats, and manages diseases and disorders of the eye. What's an optician? Well, for us in California, we essentially have 4 different types of opticians, 2 of which are individual registrations or license types, and 2 of which are business license types or registrations. One is a spectacle lens dispenser. That is an individual who's registered with the board to fit and adjust prescription spectacle lenses, glasses. The other individual registration type is a lens dispenser, a contact lens dispenser. That's somebody who's registered to fit and adjust prescription contact lenses. Then we have our two business optician types, non-resident ophthalmic lens dispenser. That's a business that's registered with the board who is located outside of California and who delivers to consumers in California prescription spectacles or contact lenses. A registered dispensing ophthalmic business, commonly known as an RDO, is an entity registered with the board located inside of California. They have a physical retail setting, engaged in the business of filling prescriptions issued by physicians or optometrists, and they dispense these prescriptions to the consumer. Basically, everything that an optician can do, an optometrist can do with their license. And essentially everything an optician and an optometrist can do, an ophthalmologist can do with their license. The law defines what an optical company is, but it does not put any requirement that those entities register with the board. What is an optical company? An optical company is a person or entity that is engaged in the manufacture, sale, or distribution to physicians and surgeons, optometrists, health plans, or dispensing opticians of lenses, frames, optical supplies, or optometric appliances or devices or kindred products. That really makes them a company that, right, is providing the apparatuses, the material, the product to the prescriber, to the health plan, to the optical shop where it will be available for the consumer. The law doesn't really speak to optical companies engaging in any retail settings or situations. So in California, the relations between all of these individuals, opticians, optometrists, physicians, health plans, optical companies, it's all regulated under Business and Professions Code 655. 655 of the BPC establishes the landlord-tenant relationship scheme that the law allows to exist between these entities. For example, an optician or a health plan can sublease space directly to an optometrist so long as the optometrist runs an independent practice, even if that optometric practice is located within the optical business. There are some rules that 655 puts in place in terms of how this relationship, what it must look like, and prohibitions on certain things. For example, leases cannot be less than 1 year. Payments cannot be based on number of eye exams performed, prescriptions written, patient referrals, or the sale or promotion of the products of an optician, optical company, or health plan. And the optometrist that's co-located in this landlord-tenant scheme must also retain exclusive control over the fees that they charge, the examination procedures and treatments that they provide. They can't be directed or controlled by the optician. However, the provisions of this law, BPC 655, that establish the landlord-tenant scheme do not apply to the following entities: medical groups that employ doctors like Kaiser, and physicians licensed by the Medical Board of California or their physician corporations. And it does not apply to optical companies contracting with physician corporations. What does this mean? This exception allows for an ophthalmologist to employ optometrists and enter into any relationship with the dispensing optician business, health plan, or optical company and not be subject to the requirements of 655. Alternatively, an optical company can enter into various contractual relationships with ophthalmology corporations, and this can be done in a way to evade any board oversight. How? An optical company secures the physical real estate location, either via purchase or lease. The optical company performs all the advertising and apparently seems to perform the furnishing of optometric services via television advertisements, online websites, etc. It then contracts, the optical company, then contracts with an ophthalmology corporation, which has employment agreements with both unlicensed staff and licensed optometrists. The optical company subleases to the ophthalmology corporation space within the physical location, and it is claimed that all of the eye exam, fitting, adjusting, and dispensing of the prescription lenses occurs within that sublease space. Under this scenario, our board has issued a license to an optometrist, the medical board has issued a license to the physician, but the establishment where the consumer arrives for an eye exam and where their prescription is dispensed is unlicensed and not regulated by apparently any state board. The board, our board, is aware of at least 36 of these retail establishments in California. To bring these entities into the regulatory fold, we propose new issue 2, which would require registration for optical companies that advertise or furnish optometric services and who are in landlord-tenant relations with physicians, physician corporations, health plans, or RDOs, where consumers can visit a retail establishment and receive an eye exam and a prescription product. That is new issue number 2. And that concludes the changes that I wanted to cover with the board as it pertains to what is presented to you today compared to what was presented in October. Happy to take questions on anything that was just mentioned, but also any comments or questions that members may have for the report itself overall.
I have a couple, but I'll defer to the room until you get to me.
I don't see any hands in the room. Floor is yours, Member Kleppa.
Thank you. By the way, for what it's worth, I agree with your position on new issue 2. It makes perfect sense. My point were a couple other areas. If we can turn to page 7 of the report under the attendance, table 1A attendance section.
Yeah.
All right, you with me?
I am there now.
Okay. I would have thought that table 1A attendance between Stacy Hancock, CLD, SLD, and Glenn Kawaguchi, OD, there should be Paul Sue, but I'm not seeing him. Why? What am I missing?
We probably need to just add his attendance data back in.
Fair enough. I thought maybe I missed something. And then if we look at page 5, we have, I assume every other member checked it. I don't think member Sue is with us today, so he probably didn't have a chance to look at his own. So I'm going to assume every other member is there. If you look, this is members Clemens and Dawson. This is on page 5, and then I'm on page 8. We all have an entry under date reappointed NA. I'm not quite sure why that would not be applicable unless a decision has already been made not to reappoint any of us. Any ideas?
Well, you haven't been reappointed. So no, it's not applicable because there's been no decision as to whether your appointing authority has not decided whether to reappoint you or not. So we put not applicable because there's no date that's been, there's no other date to put.
Okay. I was just curious to see if there was some piece of information of which we're not aware. So fair enough.
No, and just to be clear, I have no role in that process.
Okay. I just want to know what those letters referenced in relation to that point. So thank you for clarifying. And that's all I had.
Thank you, Member Kleppa. That's really good feedback. I appreciate it.
Anyone? Any questions or comments?
I only had one small change. Page 25, part 3, PAPS is taken during the 4th year of optometry school, not the 3rd year. So it's
You're on what page, sorry?
page 24.
24.
Yeah. And it's a second paragraph down, 3rd line from the bottom. It says part 3 is taken between August and May instead of the 4th year of optometry school.
Oh, it should be 4th year instead of 3rd year.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
But everything else looks fantastic.
Okay, good to know that. 4th year. Did you have any other comments or edits or questions? Okay.
I don't see anything else. I just want to thank you and thank staff and everyone for working on this report. So much time and just dedication to putting this great product out there. I know that everyone has read this multiple times, countless times, updated it, changed things around, just worked so hard on this. And so, yeah, we really appreciate the work that was put into this. And I do believe the motion, we have a motion that we're entertaining, but just to let everyone know, if there are some small, non-substantive technical things, that they will be able to make those changes as necessary, even with our approval of a motion. Do we need to take that?
Well, we need a motion and then public comment, right?
Okay.
You might need to make the motion since you. have
Okay.
it in front.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I move to approve the sunset report and authorize staff to make any non-substantive changes necessary to finalize the report, including but not limited to clarifying language, explaining existing board processes, programs, and activities, making grammatical and technical changes, and incorporating updated financial information or other data as it becomes available. Staff is directed to finalize the report in accordance with these guidelines and submit it to the legislature prior to or on January 6th, 2025. And if I could get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And now I will open it up for public comment in the room. Seeing none, let's see if there's any public comment on the phone.
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion or the sunset review report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You may click on the question mark icon, type the word comment into the text box, and click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close those features?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
So if we can take a roll call vote.
Member Clemens,
Yes.
Member Dawson,
Aye.
Member Kleppa,
Aye.
Dr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Dr. Wong,
Aye.
Dr. Bragg, aye. Vice President Linden,
Aye.
President Garcia,
I vote aye.
motion passes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are on agenda item number 10, which is for future agenda items. Are there any items the members wish to bring up for discussion as a future agenda item?
While the members may be thinking, I know one that has come up a few times is taking the board on the road. I don't have much more concrete updates to share with you right now, but I do want to share that that's all still in progress, and we are making progress toward that. I think I highlighted at the last meeting that we were thinking that the October meeting would be a great opportunity for our meeting to be at one of the schools in California. I've started conversations with the schools. We don't have anything, again, formalized and finalized yet, but it's looking promising that October meeting could be at one of the Southern California schools. So I wanted to share that. I know that the other interest has been going to an optical training program. I reported at the last meeting that we had a recent visit at Sac City's optical training program, which was just amazing and remarkable. And I'm going to be making plans to take the board to tour that facility in the new year as well. So we will continue formulating those plans, and we'll look forward to sharing the details when they're locked in. But just wanted to update the board that stuff was coming. So look forward to it. No other items? Okay.
Take public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take public comment from anyone in the audience.
Thank you, Greg. That's exactly what I was going to say about future visits. It's going to still take us a couple of years. We are building a museum, and we've got the Board of Optometry there. We've got your history, which looks beautiful. We're still putting together a lot more research. We're going to have them on iPads, but in a couple of years, we're actually going to have an exhibit. And we'd love for you to come maybe on one of your board meetings before the exhibit, come and see what we have in the mock museum. And we welcome all your ideas. It's really interesting, trust me. And I've emailed you a few things already.
Yeah, Ruby, share just for the board and members of the public, name of your organization and where you guys are building this.
I'm with the California State Society for Opticians, and the mock museum is in Ventura County. Okay, and we have it in an underserved population because that's who we're also wanting to invite to become opticians, hopefully even optometrists. Okay, but yeah, we'd love for you to, in your future, we're not going to push it. We still need time, maybe a couple more years, and come visit us. Okay,
We'll work together on it.
thank you.
Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the phone?
This is the moderator. We've opened up the WebEx features for public comment. If anyone would like to suggest a topic for a future board meeting, you may click on the hand icon to raise your hand, or you may click on the question mark icon, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Any suggestions for future topics? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I think that's it. I just want to make a quick thank you to Greg and staff. I know the December board meeting, all the board meeting stuff we know has to go out ahead of time to be properly noticed, and it was just the holidays. And so, that combined with this last sunset report kind of feels like a double whammy. So just thank you again, everyone, for all of your work, especially during the holiday season. So thank you.
You're welcome. And let me just say, I purposely, in working with President Garcia and you, purposely did not propose a December meeting in 2025. I've been with the board now 2 years, and we've had December meetings, and it's tough. I think they're tough, right? The week after Thanksgiving is tough. You can't really do a December meeting any other part of December. You just get too close to travel and Christmas and everything else. But it's tough coming out of Thanksgiving. So I guess the good news is we don't have one planned for December of 25. So I appreciate you making that comment. But yeah, it's a lot of planning that goes into these meetings. So.
If no other members have anything, I guess we will now go into closed session. Once the board goes into closed session, we will not return. So we will adjourn following the conclusion of closed session.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.